With NFL free agency quickly approaching, teams are right now putting together their wish list of players that they hope to acquire to address specific needs on their roster. And today, I'm going to take a look at each AFC team and take a look at their top 3 needs and how they can address those either via free agency or through the draft. Now, quick little asterisk, when it came to the free agents, I tried to keep each team's cap situation in mind. And at the same time, when it came to that need, obviously they want to get the top player at that position, but I wanted to showcase some of the other options. So I also took a look at some of the budget options for specific positions. But without further ado, let's go ahead, get into this sucker. Of course, being a Dolphins fan, we're starting with the AFC East, fins up, and taking a look. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills. Now, obviously, wide receiver for some people would be like a top 3 need, but you look at that defense and how many points they allowed and just how squishy they were. And I feel like if I'm the Bills, I really want to go in on the defense. So I have their top 3 needs being corner, defensive interior, and then edge. I included the best players at that position currently for them. We have a really good player in Christian Benford at corner who's had multiple concussions to end the season. So it's like there's a little queasiness there. I think their best option, honestly, is address it in the draft and re-sign Rasul Douglas, who's been really good for you. Now, when it comes to what they can address in the draft, when it comes to that, I would say Darian Porter. He's long, he's fast, and I think he could play in a variety of different schemes. So if they want him to play press, off coverage, zone man, he can do that. He comes with a small sample size, being this past season like the most he ever played, but it was very impressive. So if I'm looking for a corner and the Bills maybe targeting him in the 2nd round, because he probably ends up being a close to a top 50 player because he's probably going to be really good at the combine. They might have to move up for him, or maybe he gets pushed down the board. He would be someone to keep in mind when it comes to the defensive interior. Ed Oliver is obviously their best player. I think they want a little meat, a little girth. Poona Ford's kind of a fun player in free agency, a good budget option that he's just what, isn't he like 5'11", like 310 pounds? Poona Ford. I don't have his weight off the top of my head. What can I say? 5'11", 311. Yeah, look at that, dude. So he's going to be someone that can not necessarily be a space eater, but he's someone that's going to hold the point of attack just because of the leverage he plays with. Or at the back end of the 1st round, they could draft a guy like, I don't know, Talik Williams, who is probably the best run defender in this class, who also has some pass rushing upside, just needs a little polish in that area because, I don't know, man, for some reason, Ohio State, they don't necessarily always develop their defensive interior pass rush. But when it comes to edge, I've been saying Greg Rousseau needs a running mate. I think maybe you bring in a Matt Judon, who's coming off a down year, and probably you can get for a solid price, solid enough 1-year option. And then you probably look to address it in the draft, whether that be in the 1st round. Depends on who falls, like maybe a Nick Scorton, a Shamar Stewart, or Landon Jackson at the tail end of that 2nd round. He might end up going earlier. I think a lot of people like him, but I think there's still much work that needs to be done when it comes to him. Regardless, I think he would be probably a fun option if he made it to the back end of that 2nd round for the Buffalo Bills. And then obviously they should add some more receiving help as well. They should probably keep that in mind. And then my Miami Dolphins, fins up, baby, fins up. I have offensive guard, defensive interior, and linebacker being our top needs, with maybe corner now that we've officially released Kendall Fuller, and we actually released Raheem Mostert, but we kind of drafted Jalen Wright last year, so running back not exactly a big need, but I called those 2. I said those probably would be big cuts. They also cut Durham Smythe, but I mean, he only, I think, freed up like $1 million in cap, so it wasn't like a big cut, I think, for us. But when it comes to guard, it's the most pressing need. We have nobody there, and I mean nobody. Player that I like that I think the Dolphins could get for a reasonable price because currently their cap situation, I think they're probably with the cuts probably around 13 to 15 million. You got James Daniels, who's coming off the injury, but was hella good last year prior to getting hurt. And if we're looking to fill in that both guard spots in general, I think he would be a good way to start in free agency. And then you look in the first round for like an Armand Membu, who maybe can play tackle for us if injury occurs. And we got to start moving people around. Membu, he has that flexibility to kick out to tackle, but I think more teams maybe view him as a guard because he's got that guard build at 6'4", 332 pounds. But I think he'd be a phenomenal fit for Mike McDaniels and that just wide zone run scheme. Excellent athlete. And then defensive interior, we have Zach Sealer, and that's about it. Roy Lopez, I think, would be a solid depth piece. Not a guy that I want as a consistent starter, but someone who's shown to be a good rotation player, whether it was to stay at Houston or Arizona. And then in the second round for the Dolphins, maybe a Darius Alexander, who's shown so much variety, like versatility in terms of where you can line him up. You can line him up outside of the tackle, inside of the tackle. You can line him up 3-tech. You could line him up in some cases at nose tackle. He's got a strong body, quick get off. Man can hold the point of attack. He can 2-gap. He can 1-gap. He can do a lot of different things. I really loved what he did at the Senior Bowl, and I think that kind of cemented he's a day 2 player. And then linebacker. I would love if the Dolphins just re-sign Anthony Walker. When healthy, he is a very good linebacker. Problem is, he typically gets hurt. But pairing him up with Jordan Brooks, who Brooks had a solid year, man. Honestly, I was a bit down on the signing. I thought he was just a thumper, but he impressed me. I'm not saying he was like best linebacker in football, but I was like, oh, okay, there we go. That's a starting linebacker. I like that. So, like Anthony Walker, he was a guy that the Dolphins turned to at the tail end of the season as the starter. So I mean, so much so like it eventually led to like they traded. I think they released David Long. But if we were to try to get younger at the position, maybe at the back end of the third round, like a Cody Simon, who you could argue was up there with like JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer as the MVP for the college football playoff. This dude was everywhere. I just love how he plays the game. He was a starter early in his career for Ohio State until he got hurt. And when he returned, he was no longer a starter and really didn't get that time to shine until this season, where it was a hell of a good year for him. Let's go ahead and move on to the dastardly New England Patriots. I got offensive tackle. You could say offensive line in general for the Patriots, but offensive tackle, wide receiver, and edge. Let's start at tackle. Michael Wenu might end up having to play right tackle, depending on what they have like Cole Strange. Who's their other guard there? I know City Sal was hurt all last year, so he probably lost his job. Well, I guess it is Michael Wenu or Layden Robinson. Again, they got to figure out what they're doing at the tackle positions, both tackle positions in general. So yeah. What can we do for him? Dan Moore, because I feel like a lot of these tackles are going to re-sign. I mean, if we want to take a look at you got Ronnie Stanley, if he's available, go out and try to get him. Alaric Jackson, if he's available, go out and try to get him. I feel like those guys are going to end up re-signing with their teams respectfully, and the top of the class is going to look like guys like Dan Moore and stuff, the top of the free agent class. So whoever that top guy is, I would say Patriots, you have the money, go ahead and throw money at it. If it ends up not working, then in a year or two, you could cut that guy loose. Just push those guarantees early in the contract. When it comes to the draft, some people will say like Will Campbell in the first. Let's look at the second, man. Ariante Ursary. Yeah, I think he's a hell of a good player. He's got the flexibility, I think, to play guard as well. But at 6'6", I'd rather you at tackle. That's just my prerogative when it comes to what I like in guards. But he's someone that ends up on the ground a lot. But when it comes to like size, speed, strength, like he's got the makings, he's got the profile of an NFL offensive tackle. It's just, it might not be great out the gates, but someone certainly you can target. Wide receiver, it's really Pop Douglas. Jalen Polk didn't look great last year. We didn't see Javon Baker at all, really. Oh my gosh, who was the... there we go, Kayshon Abute. How can I forget the former LSU wide receiver? He had a good game at the end of the year. They still have Kendrick Bourne for now. Could be a cap casualty. We'll find out. But they need wide receiver, obviously. The easy answers here are like T. Higgins. Hit free agency. Go out and drop that pretty penny. You have the cap space. And then, obviously, Tetro McMillan in the first. If they decide to go elsewhere, then I think Alec Manor would be a good player to grab in the second. He's got good size, good long speed, but also I think more put together as a route runner than some people give him credit for. Like, he understands leverage. He knows how to create that window for the pass for the passer. So I actually like him quite a bit. But let's talk about edge. They got Keon White, who had a solid year. Started out the year on fire and then kind of simmered down, but still solid year. If they want to bring in a free agent option, I think like DeMarcus Lawrence would be a good vet to bring in, because he's still playing good football when healthy, but he'd be a good veteran to bring in. And because let's be honest, the Patriots defense, they're young. They have some old heads here and there, but bringing a good veteran presence in the locker room. In the third, again, we're not even talking about the Patriots first rounder. We already kind of know what they can do there with it. So let's talk about what they can do in the day two. And I got Oluwadafemi Olodejo out of UCLA, who popped off during the Senior Bowl. He was a former linebacker. Granted, he played defensive end in high school. Went to California, played linebacker for a couple of years. Went to UCLA, played linebacker for a year. Started the year this season, first 2 games, he was a linebacker. Mainly off ball that blitzed here and there. And then they moved him to edge and he just popped off. He had a great Senior Bowl. He is a bit raw on some in terms of his pass rush and whatnot. For the most part, he's very much like speed of power. But like, you look at that build, like 10% body fat, really good first step. And he's got the ability to play coverage, so he gives you some versatility because he's got experience in doing that. I think that's a fun player to have and to get in the third round. I'll be back to the video, but I gotta shout out our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. When you download the app, remember, sign up using promo code BROSHMO. They match that first deposit up to $1,000 dues. It's not that deal's not going to be around for much longer. It's going to go back down to $250. So take advantage of it while you can. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play my favorite pick'ems. Whether you take a look at player stats and you're like higher, lower, you can do it for basketball, baseball, football. I know football's gone and whatnot, but like they do all kinds of sports. They have promos each and every day. I just love playing with Underdog Fantasy, and you can love too. Remember, sign up using the promo code BROSHMO, and of course, play responsibly, play within your means. But let's move on to the New York Jets and wrap up the AFC East here. This quarterback is kind of the big obvious one. They made it known they're splitting ways with Aaron Rodgers, which means Tyrod Taylor is their best player on the roster. I don't think they're going to address it in the first round because you're probably going to have to move up, trade up to get one of the top 2 quarterbacks. So instead, I looked at other ways that they can address it. For one, I think it would be hilarious as hell if Daniel Jones returns to New York. I think it would be funny. I don't think Sam Darnold will. That's why I was like, Daniel Jones returning to New York, but as a Jet, it would just be comedy. I love it. When it comes to their draft target, Will Howard, I think is kind of an obvious one in the third round. Some people really like Tyler Shuck, which I'm down with that, man. I liked Shuck this year at Louisville. And I like that he's starting to get a little press. But I mean, maybe a couple of these guys that have a lot of starting experience under their belt and that do offer some upside. It's just there's questions in parts of their game where it's like, can they be first rounders? Probably not, but I kind of like that here. So Will Howard to the Jets. Right tackle specifically because Olu Fashanu is going to be your left tackle. Currently, they have Max Mitchell there. I think re-signing Morgan Moses is kind of smart. Yeah, he got banged up last year, but still, when on the field, he's pretty darn solid. And having him allows you to draft someone maybe day 2 of the draft to be an heir apparent that you can develop, or you could continue to develop guys like Carter Warren and Max Mitchell. Or you could draft an Ozzie Trapillo in the third round out of Boston College. He's got really good movement skills. I love when he puts the clamps on because he's actually got some power in that frame. Like I thought he was probably the best player on that very good Boston College offensive line this past year. However, but he's a taller guy, so sometimes he struggles with leverage. And then defensive interior, because I looked at that. And yeah, you got Quinnen Williams. That's all fine and dandy. But I mean, you got a lot of free agents when it comes to the Jets interior. I mean, again, you could also make a point at wide receiver with Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard. Those guys probably not going to be on the roster. But you did draft Malachi Corley. You still have Garrett Wilson. Xavier Gibson has shown some stuff. So, like, yeah, you probably should bring in some wide receivers. But you look at this defensive interior and Javon Kinlaw, free agent, Solomon Thomas, free agent, Luki Fatu, free agent. It's basically Leonard Taylor and Fedarian Mathis. I think you probably take a shot. I like TJ Sladen as an option for the Jets. Big body, just nose tackle who played a lot of snaps. Considering he played a lot of nose tackle. I think he was about 450, 500 snaps for the Packers last year. So I think adding him to be a part of that rotation, but kind of a mainstay with Quinnen Williams isn't a bad idea. Obviously, in the first, if Mason Graham makes it to you, that's the pick. That feels just freaking phenomenal. I really like that quite a bit. Nice and easy peasy. Let's move on to the AFC North, starting with the Baltimore Ravens. As left tackle currently, they have nobody there. They don't. So re-sign Ronnie Stanley. I think it makes all the sense in the world. If not, then maybe you draft like a Josh Simmons. You could throw Josh Connerly's name up in there as well. Take one of these guys that potentially might slip to the back end of the first. We know that the Ravens really wanted to get Tyler Guyton last season, but Dallas ended up swooping him up. So we know the Ravens want to look to the future when it comes to tackle. You already got your right tackle in place in Roger Rosengarten. So let's get that left one. Linebacker is kind of a sneaky one because, of course, they got Roquan Smith, who, dude, 27. Why does it feel like he's not young? I feel like he's been in the league for like 15 years. I feel like he should be like Bobby Wagner's age. It just blows my mind that like so much so that like I feel like I have to go and confirm that once again. But like Roquan Smith feels like he should be older. But no, he's 27. That's just blows my mind. But next to him, the Trenton Simpson the experiment didn't work there. At least not this year. Was it Malik Harrison's a free agent? So they could definitely go in and bring in another linebacker. I think Jamin Sherwood, who played really good when injury hit the Jets linebacking core. He's a former safety at Auburn, made the transition to linebacker, and he looks pretty good here. I think he's a guy worth taking a shot on. And if not, because I think they're looking for these crazy good athletes, which Sherwood would be. I think maybe in the draft then take like a Shamar James in the 3rd round, who's probably, he's going to be up there in terms of how he tests athletically in this linebacker class. He had the highest zebra time, which just miles per hour at the Senior Bowl among linebackers. He's a former 5-star, just a phenomenal athlete. And then you look at the guard position, they got Daniel Falalele and what is it? Patrick Macari is a free agent. They could try to run it again with Andrew Voorhees and see if they got something there. Or you could go out, Kevin Zeitler's a free agent, have him retire a Raven. Feels like a good story. Love that. Or Tyler Booker in the 1st. He's been a guy that's been honestly surging. I mean, I saw him as early as 13 to the Dolphins. And I love Tyler Booker. I think he's probably in this back end of the 1st round area. So he's a guy that might be on the board there for the Ravens, who, in terms of, I think, size, strength, and athletic ability, you could make a point that he could play linebacker. I'm just saying. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Look at that. Y'all already see the Browns. Y'all already know quarterback's a problem. But the Cincinnati Bengals, I have offensive guard, obviously with Cordell Volson. He's not the guy. Alex Kappa's coming off probably his worst year in like many moons. But he's also 30. Does he clap back? I don't know. The Bengals, it's like they have a lot of cap space, but I feel like you should reserve that to take shots on the defense, or I don't know, if you figure something out to keep some way to keep T. Higgins, probably means you're moving like Trey Hendrickson. I don't know, man. I don't know. But I went with a budget option. Nate Herbig, when asked to play, he's played good football, whether it was for like the Jets or the Steelers. You could also address it in the 3rd round with one of my favorite prospects, Tate Ratledge. I love Ratledge. He's not going to be like super sexy in terms of athleticism, but I think he's got good grip strength. He moves well enough. Played a lot of outside zone blocking there at Georgia, and he was just a solid player. And then edge, obviously it's Trey Hendrickson. If they trade him, then it's like you have nobody. You're hoping Miles Murphy just becomes the player you thought he would be when you drafted him. Or you could go after a Josh Sweat. I think this is where you spend money. Sweat coming off a great year. I think he's well worth it. And if not, man, I honestly think draft-wise, the Bengals probably take, like, if a guy like Shamar Stewart, who I think Al Golden would love a player with that body type there to play the edge. So I think those are two of the guys I'd probably be considering. You go to the defensive interior. Obviously, the defensive line is kind of a mess. Sheldon Rankins is what I would say is their best player currently. Was it Chris Jenkins? Didn't exactly have a good year, unfortunately. Jaron Reed, I think, is a good option. Like, he's a guy that's played a lot of nose tackle, but he could also, he's just got a versatile play style, so he could play really anywhere along the defensive line if you want to move him around. He's just one of these good vets that come in and they play well. So I kind of like him as a good budget option. Kenneth Grant obviously is another option in the 1st round, who's big, meaty dude at 342, but he's got really insane burst and a great motor. Like, ran down fat man. I almost said Fat Man Scoop. Fat Man Allen. Katron Allen back in 2023. Ran him down about 30 yards down the field. That's when Kenneth Grant jumped onto my radar. I was like, who is this 330 pounder flying on the field to make a play? It was insane. It was utterly nuts. You like the NFL draft. Matter of fact, you love the NFL draft, which means you're going to love my draft guide. If you want to know every player your team drafts or even signs as an undrafted free agent, then this is for you. My draft guide updates every day, and you'll be able to see those updates in real time as I add new evals and player backgrounds. It'll have analytics from this year and last year. It'll have the pro day and combine numbers. It'll even have my notes from the senior and Shrine Bowl. It's a one-time purchase of $30 via PayPal, Venmo, or the Cash App. You can check out the pinned comment or the description if you want to follow those links. And when you do purchase it, please be sure to include your email because it is a Google spreadsheet. So I'm going to require your email. Don't make me hunt it down because I will hunt you down. I will find you and I'll make sure you get your money's worth. Anywho, thanks for supporting the channel. When it comes to the Cleveland Browns, obviously quarterback is a massive need. Deshaun Watson ain't the guy. Unfortunately, they have a lot of money invested in him. He had a setback with the Achilles injury. So you're probably looking for another dude there. I have Kirk Cousins if the Falcons end up releasing him, which it sounds like they're going to move him. I don't think anyone wants to take on that contract, so they're probably just going to wait till he hits the open market and sign him for a veteran minimum. And I think the Browns, I mean, you get to reunite Kirk Cousins with I almost said Kevin O'Connell. No, now I'm blanking. Oh, no, it's almost there. Kevin Stefanski, there we go. There we go. But you get to reunite them. If they do want to go quarterback, honestly, you're the number 2 overall pick. Just whoever goes at 1, take the other one, whether it's Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. But I think if I'm the Browns, I'm probably going to kick that can down the road and just try to draft a lot of talent because it feels like that they're going to be moving a lot of guys this offseason. Edge. If they trade Myles Garrett, then edge becomes a huge need. A huge need. Isaiah McGuire honestly showed some stuff at the back end of the season. The Browns obviously don't have a lot of cap room to work with, so I was looking at budget options. Marcus Davenport, he's going to be a guy you could get on a 1-year deal. He keeps getting hurt, but there's no argument here. When on the field, he is a good player. So you could probably get him for a good price, or you could just draft Abdul Carter in the first round. That's kind of my favorite thing to do. And then left tackle, Juwan Jones, sophomore slump. You could rely on that. I mean, you could roll the dice with that and be like, okay, well, hopefully he gets better. You could bring in a Cornelius Lucas. I think that's always a great option. He's going to be a low budget. He's up there in years, but when on the field, it's hella good. I think low key, he's probably one of the best backups in football. And when he does start, he is very solid. He is old though. You're starting to wait for that, you're waiting for that ability just to fall off of a cliff. I think Donovan Jackson's an interesting player that they could grab in the second. Whether you have him competing for left tackle or if he's your heir apparent for a Joel Bitonio. I think that's a very fascinating way to go with it if you are the Cleveland Browns. So I kind of like that for them. Let's move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. As quarterback, they currently have nobody. Can they re-sign a Justin Fields? Can they re-sign a Russell Wilson? Or maybe you just go out and get yourself a Sam Darnold. I think so. I think that would be fun. Not exactly. I'm curious if how good of a fit he'll be for Arthur Smith. I mean, granted, Arthur Smith they're going to try to force the run game down teams' throats. And I love Sam Darnold when he's operating from play action. And I mean, you know what? He takes shots. I think I'm being too critical. I think another good option when it comes to the draft, Jackson Dart in the second, though. I don't know, man. Maybe he sneaks into the first. They just blow a ton of steam up his butt. And we end up getting 3 first-round quarterbacks. And I love Dart. Feels a little high, though. Wide receiver, it's George Pickens. It's Calvin Austin, who I think is a fun player, but I think you're still looking for a wide receiver too. You didn't see a lot. You didn't see Roman Wilson at all last year because of a hamstring injury, but I still think he's like a vertical slot receiver. That's about it. So maybe you bring in Elijah Moore. I know, not the sexiest option, but I mean, I was looking maybe like Hollywood Brown could also be an option there, but I don't know. I think Emeka Ibuka might be your best get here. A guy that just is a consistent chain mover, can attack all three levels of the field. He showed, hey, I could win deep as well against Oregon in the playoff game. So I'm on board for that. And then corner, you got Dante Jackson's a free agent. And the guys that you're going to be asking to step up and play next to Joey Porter is Corey Trice, who we haven't seen a lot of because of injury. Maybe Beanie Bishop, but I think Beanie Bishop is kind of cemented in that slot role. So I think if you want to go spend money, go get, obviously, Sam Darnold. Go get Charvarius Ward. So obviously he had a lot of personal tragedy happen this past season in San Francisco. Reports are that he just wants to leave San Francisco behind him. Not anything that the city or the team did wrong to him. It's just like there's a lot of heartbreak there for him. So I figured, okay, then move all the way east to the Steelers. He plays Steeler football. He is a physical corner. And I think he's one of the most underrated corners in the NFL. And I've been saying this for like 3 years now. I love me some Charvarius Ward. You get to pair him up with Joey Porter Jr. Feels like magic. Maybe in the second round, like a Trey Amos will be available to him. And I think he's probably a guy that fits the Steeler way. I think he does, man. He's physical. He's long. He's got some size to him. He's also got some ball skills. But let's move on to the AFC South. Starting with your division champions in the Texans, the Houston Texans. And I have interior of the offensive line probably as their biggest need. Currently, they have Jared Patterson, who could really play either guard or center, but it depends what they want to do with Juice Scruggs. But obviously, you have Shaq Mason, who's in his twilight years. You probably want to look to improve in the position in general, because CJ Stroud, was like the third most sacked quarterback in football last season. Patrick McCarry played really well on the interior at left guard for the Ravens. I think he would be a fun guy to bring in because it's not like the Texans have the biggest budget. They're not like the worst in cap space, but they're kind of in like that 20s range. In the second round, Jonah Sabanea. I think he would be a really good fit for Nick Caley, who's coming from the Rams. So, hey, Rams, they used to be this wide zone team. They still have aspects of that where you better be able to move, but they started incorporating a lot of gap scheme into their run blocking. So Jonah Sabanea, I think he's got the pop. I know some people will be like, well, that anchor going backwards. Well, he was playing tackle. Listen, he's got the pop when moving forward. He's definitely more comfortable moving forward than backwards. I think he'd be a really good fit for the run scheme. And you could get him probably in the second round. Defensive interior. I've been saying this since last season. They have one of the most underwhelming defensive interiors in the league. And freaking Texans fans are like, oh, it's fine. It's a solid floor. No, it's not. It's bad. They got Tim Settle there. I think a majority of those guys are maybe free agents. I don't think that's the case for like Fadakasi. So they got Fadakasi and Settle. Let's take a look at the rest. Oh, they got Tommy Togi. I didn't know that. Not that changes anything. Let's be honest. And I feel like the staff likes Kurt Hinish, but no, come on. You got to address the position. D'Amico Ryans, he's going to look. Hey, there's Javon Hargrave. Hell yeah, man. Let's bring him over. He's still got I think he's still got something left in the tank. Let's go out and get him. Or you could obviously draft a TJ Sanders, who I think would be a great fit, man. You already got the big boy in Fadakasi. You get someone who can really push the pocket, but he's like stout, so he actually plays the run really well. That's right up to Miko's alley. And then I have wide receiver. A lot of this has to do with obviously Tank Dell being hurt and don't know when he's going to be available again. You have Nico Collins, who's kind of emerged as one of the best. I don't want to say that. That's not right. emerged to be in, I would say, a top 10-ish wide receiver in the NFL. So Stephon Diggs, free agent. You got John Mechie there, but I think you still need to continue to add. Josh Palmer could be a good option, I would say. Someone who I thought was solid there with the Chargers, just didn't live up. Well, wasn't he a third rounder? Because I liked Palmer coming out of Tennessee. I have a weak spot in some regard. I can't really say this about all Tennessee wide receivers. Yeah, he was a third round pick, but I really also liked Juwan Jennings coming out. I was shocked that he fell to like the 7th round, I think. I was shocked. But Palmer, I think, could come in and be a very solid like wide receiver 2, but probably fits in better as being a wide receiver 3. But no, Wynn asked to step up when he had to step up to be a wide receiver 2. And it kind of took on the Keenan Allen role if you go back to like 2023. He was hella good. So, I don't know. I like taking a shot on Palmer. Emeka Egbuka is kind of the obvious answer when it comes to the draft. He's got a rapport with Justin Fields. CJ Stroud. Oh, got my Ohio State quarterbacks mixed up. He's got a rapport. Apparently, they still talk. And I can imagine that he would be high on Houston's big board or on guys they want to acquire. Let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts. Tight end. Tight end is actually, they got a lot of free agents. I wish I could have put Jelani Woods as the current top player there, but he's been hurt the last 2 seasons. It's Drew Ogletree, which yuck. They could maybe go out and get a Tommy Tremble in free agency. I think like Tommy Tremble's got a lot to provide, I think. I think he could have a breakout year at his next destination. And I trust Shane Steichen to be able to figure out how to properly utilize a guy like Tremble. Obviously, Tyler Warren's what everyone and their mom wants when it comes to Indianapolis. They would love to add him to the roster. And I get it. He's a good player at a position that they're really thin at. I just hope the value's there. Safety. Safety, low-key, they're kind of like thin at because it's just Nick Cross. Julian Blackmon's a free agent. Actually, I say they should just re-sign Julian Blackmon. Once he got healthy at near the end of the season, he was much better. Much better for them. But they still have Rodney Thomas, who hasn't really started a game, I think, since... Oh, was it sometime in 2023? I don't know. But yeah, they could probably use another safety. So I put re-signing Julian Blackmon, I thought would just be a good option. Then you have Xavier Watts. I think that's the fun option. Oh, thank you. I think that's the fun option. Someone who's just this ball hawk. Great, elite speed even. He go fast. He go boom, boom, real fast. And then you have offensive guard. I put Matt Goncalves here because I don't know who else you fill him in with. Like Dalton Tucker? No. Goncalves, though, I think could be the heir apparent at right tackle for Braden Smith. I know some people talked about as a guy that potentially gets moved this offseason or at least in the future. I think you just re-sign Will Fries. He's been good for you. I wasn't the biggest Will Fries fan, and it was kind of a slow burn for me. But I think he's played really good football for him, and he's probably going to make a good contract in free agency. If you choose not to bring him back, Wyatt Millum feels like the guy, right? He's going to be a guard in the NFL. This allows you to keep Matt Goncalves out at tackle if you still view him as the heir apparent for Braden Smith. So, I mean, Millum, he also has that ability to play tackle in a pinch. Not that that's a position you want him there at, but man, maybe he does kick out to tackle and it's like, oh, wow, it does work in the NFL. But yeah, Wyatt Millum, I think, is probably a solid get for the Colts on day 2. Joe. Catch you later, bud. Let's move on. I think we have the Jacksonville Jaguars next on the agenda. I have corner being their biggest need. They have no one next to Tyson Campbell, though you could definitely, Jarian Jones, there's something there when it comes to the slot. DJ Reed, he's one of my favorite, he is probably one of the best cornerback twos in the NFL. Where whoever he's playing opposite of, he's playing he's going to be playing good football. So getting to pair him up with Campbell, I think that would be a fun idea. Obviously, Will Johnson in the first round is one of my favorite ways to go for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I think that could be pretty darn solid there. Right guard, currently they have nobody. That's Brandon Sheriff. They could bring him back probably at a reasonable cost. He was all right last year, but you definitely need to look for a future option. Dalton Reisner, he stepped up because I think began the year hurt for the Vikings. And then Ed Ingram just sucked. And then he stepped in and played solid football. Listen, the Jaguars, they did this before with Ezra Cleveland. They went out, traded for him, ended up extending him. So grabbing another Vikings guard kind of makes sense to me. Donovan Jackson, this is the second time we're seeing his name. I think there at the second round. Also, he gives you the ability to play tackle if things go south with guys like Walker Little, Anton Harrison, or if they get hurt. So I like Donovan Jackson there. Safety, because Andre Sisco's a free agent. Darnell Savage, I think, is he a free agent? If anything, he's just not been good, unfortunately. Andrew Wingard, though, when called upon, he's actually pretty solid. They could go out and get Talanoa Hufanga, who the Niners already came out and said he will not be back with the team. So Hufanga could be a pretty solid sign-in. They could always bring back Andre Sisco, or maybe in the third, like a Kevin Winston Jr. I absolutely love Kevin Winston Jr. He would be, I think, higher regarded and more talked about if he wasn't coming off the injury. He only played 2 games this past season. But let's wrap up the AFC South with the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, quarterback's kind of a big need for him. I say kind of. It is. Obviously, it's a big need for him, but I want to take a look at their other needs because I have a feeling that they're going to address that need at quarterback in the first round with the first overall pick. Wide receiver, it's Calvin Ridley, and that's it. And maybe what? Mason Kinley? Let's see. They got Calvin Ridley, who is also 30. Kinsey, there we go. Oh, they still have Treylon Burks too. I could see him being moved on from. Didn't see much from Jaquan Jackson this year. So yeah, they should probably go out and get a guy. I think re-sign. You start by re-signing Nick Westbrook, who was freaking a touchdown machine during the second half of the season. And then you could probably grab like a Jaden Higgins in the second round. I think he'd be a good complement to Calvin Ridley, bringing size, smoothness as a possession receiver. Right tackle, you could even go into right guard because, well, right guard Dylan Radins is a free agent. But I chose to go with right tackle because, well, they have Nicholas Petit-Frere there, and that is no good. Jalen Duncan didn't play a lot, but when he did play, it wasn't great. So you could go after like a cost-effective player would be like Justin Skull, who when he filled in for, was it Tris? No, it was Luke Godecki who went down for a few games with the concussion. Skull filled in and looked really, really, really good. So he could be a good option to come and compete at right tackle, which, I mean, this could allow you to take like a Cameron Williams, maybe in the second. I don't think the Titans have a third round pick, so maybe a case where they trade down. So Cameron Williams, you could develop him. You don't have to throw him to the wolves. If you have a Skull there who could start the year, and you could develop Williams and then throw him out there eventually, because Skull's got some flexibility. He could kick into guard if you need him to. So I like that. Linebacker, they have nobody at linebacker. I think Cedric Gray might be their best player there. Don't get me started about Kenneth Murray. I don't think Kenneth Murray shouldn't be a starter in the NFL. I'm sorry. That's just where I'm at with it. Nick Bolton. I love this. I would love this fit. Get your... Listen, Denard Wilson, go out and get your Roquan Smith. And I think that can be Nick Bolton, who has played really good football for the Chiefs. And he's going to get the bag now. Jahan Campbell could be also an option early in the second round. Again, it was kind of hard to dip anywhere, like dip into the linebacker class. Considered, I don't think the Titans have a third round pick. And I was really just focusing on the first 3 rounds. Maybe you could do something in the fourth. What are the Titans picks right now, actually? Let's take a quick look at it. They do have a fourth. Okay. They do have a fourth. So, yeah, they actually have 2 fourths. They have 101 and 118 from what it looks like. So, yeah, Jahan Campbell could be an option there in the second round. Let's move on to the AFC West. Last but not least, we got the Denver Broncos. I have tight end being one of their biggest needs. Adam Troutman, he is a fine tight end too, but not much else. Maybe Sean Payton's like, hey, that Juwan Johnson guy that's on the team that I used to coach, he ain't half bad. Maybe you could go get him in free agency. Colson Loveland, I think it's kind of a obvious one in the first round that maybe you could snag potentially. You look at wide receiver. They have Cortland Sutton. They've seen some things from guys like, Vele, Franklin, Mims. But I think you still should take a few shots, bring in a guy, maybe a Keenan Allen you bring in to be a nice security blanket, a safety blankie for Bo Nix there. If you want to do it via the draft, I think Luther Burden, just this yak monster in Sean Payton's offense. I love it. But obviously, when it comes to the Broncos, I look at their playmakers in general, and I'm like, you need better playmakers for Bo Nix, especially for that offensive line that played really well at running back. You have Audric Estime. He's young. He's thick. He had 2 fumbles last year. Granted, they were early in the year, but maybe bring in another guy. Just in case. Start making this running back room look, I don't want to say fruitful, appealing. So Kareem Hunt, I think, would be a fun guy for Sean Payton. Caleb Johnson, though, is probably someone I'd want to target in the second round if I'm the Broncos, just because there's a lot of tools there when it comes to Johnson. Great frame, big speed. Let's move on to the current AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs, former Super Bowl champions. Gojo's not here for this one, thank goodness. Offensive line is kind of a big thing. It's a huge issue. Joe Thuney, they could maybe keep him at left tackle, but I think you want to just move him back to guard. It's where he is. That's where he plays. But let's start with tackle. Juwan Taylor is currently probably their best tackle, and that's just not a good feeling. It's just not a good feeling. I feel like he could potentially be moved this offseason. Cam Robinson, someone who's playing solid football. Like, dude, the Vikings went out, picked him up from the Jags because, well, Christian Darrisaw went down, and Cam Robinson came in and did a really good job. Like, he's a very solid tackle at this point in his career. If you're looking to creep back towards average when it comes to that offensive line, I think Cam Robinson's a guy you want to probably focus and look for. Anthony Belton in the third round, I really like. Whether he's a guard or a tackle, he kind of fits the scheme as well, just being this big, mean space eater that just can mow you down. He just kind of fits it. And whether he's filling in at one of the tackle spots or he's filling in for Trey Smith, who is a free agent, and let's just go ahead and talk about it. You got Joe Thuney still there. Trey Smith, you're not going to be able to afford him. Maybe you bring in a Zach Martin who's in the twilight years. He's near the end of the road. Maybe at this point he's ring chasing. Maybe you could bring him in and get some solid play from. Tyler Booker in the first round seems like a very sexy option to bring in there to replace Trey Smith. So they have some options there. Defensive interior, because you got Noddy and Wharton as free agents. So Chris Jones, he has no one next to him. So who are we going to bring in? Maybe a Levi Ozarike, who's that Wharton. He's that penetrator, that guy that creates havoc. He's just got better size than Wharton. Or you could do that with Derek Hardman in the draft out of Oregon, who has better size than Ozarike. And he was probably the most productive pass rusher among this defensive interior class. 55 pressures, 5 sacks, a win rate of close to 18%. I think that was the highest among the interiors. So, options. Let's move on to the Las Vegas Raiders. Quarterback, kind of the obvious one here. So we're going to bring back Russell Wilson returns to Pete Carroll's side as your bridge quarterback, but to give some stability, consistency. Though Aiden O'Connell played pretty solid football down the stretch, I think you bring in Russell Wilson and you have a competition. Obviously, they could draft Shedeur Sanders in the first, whether you're moving up to get him or he makes it to you at 6. They have that connection with Tom Brady, so like there might be something there. You still need pass catchers. Golly, you still need pass catchers. You have Jacoby Myers. You have Brock Bowers. That's awesome. You need more guys on the outside. This is where actually I brought in Hollywood Brown, who looked really good to end the year. He was coming off that shoulder injury. I thought he looked solid. I think you could probably bring him in there to pair up with Jacoby Myers, and then obviously you got Brock Bowers as well. You could draft a guy. There's Tetairoa McMillan. If you want to go that route at 6, maybe you do bring in Russell Wilson. You kick the can down the road when it comes to the quarterback of the future. You're like, we'll take a look next draft. Get Tetairoa McMillan. Nice big body target there in the first round. Safety. So ultimately, I was looking at running back, looking at safety. Running back is like, okay, at least you got Sincere McCormick, who played really good football. Granted, he got hurt at the end of the year. Yeah, it's a deep running back class. You could probably bring in a few guys on day 3. But safety, their best guy is Thomas Harper. Everyone else is a free agent. Like Marcus Epps, free agent coming off injury. You got Trevon Merrick, free agent. If anything, I'm saying re-sign him. I think he's starting to put his game together the last couple of years. He's looking like a really good safety. Let's see, who else was there? Isaiah Polamau, I believe is how you say it, the former USC safety. He stepped in and played all right, played okay, but he's a free agent. So yeah, you need to add a guy here. I also got Nick Emanuwari, safety out of South Carolina. He brings the stank, and I like it quite a bit. Even if you bring back Trevon Merrick, adding Emanuwari, I think would be solid for that defense. And then last but not least, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. I have defensive interior as probably their biggest need, just because there's not a lot of guys there. A lot of them are free agents. Otito Ogabonia. I'm just going to call him Otito. Is their best player still there? Maybe you go add like a BJ Hill. He's a nice space eater. Nice space eater who can be a quality player on the defensive line. Because keep in mind, looking at the cap, Chargers actually got quite a bit. They could go out and spend. But like I look at their needs and it's like they don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money on their needs. Like, if they want to go out and be like, screw it, we're going to go after T. Higgins, I think they could do that. I legit think they can do that. But anyway, if they don't go the BJ Hill route, obviously Kenneth Grant makes sense with Jim Harbaugh and whatnot. So that's an option. Center, they have nobody. They could re-sign Bradley Bozeman. I think I like the idea of bringing in like a Ryan Kelly and probably drafting someone. So Ryan Kelly, he has missed he just doesn't play a full season anymore. He's up there in years, but when on the field, he's playing good football. You could get him to mentor, like here, a Jared Wilson, who only has 1 year as a true starter at center. So he could come in and, like, straight up, he could probably even play, like, contest for guard, Jared Wilson. But in my mind, he would be my center of the future. Kind of like what the Eagles did with Cam Jurgens. And then tight end, Will Disley really let the team down the stretch, unfortunately. I really like Will Disley as a tight end too, but we're probably going to go out and try to get an actual pass catcher. Mike Gesicki is kind of the first name that comes to mind when it comes to pass catching tight end. Colston Loveland, another Jim Harbaugh guy, kind of makes all the sense in the world. That's someone they want to go out and pursue, but that's it. I gave you 3 needs for 16 AFC teams, and I gave you some possible answers. Go ahead, let me know what you think it down in the comment section below. Who do you think your team should target, whether it's free agency, the draft, or maybe even a trade? I didn't include trades in this, but go ahead, let me know in the comment section below. Special thanks to our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Remember, when you download the app, sign up using promo code BROSHMO. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.